Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every freight truck has disappeared. The roads feel strangely quiet. There are no long trailers beside you on the highway, no delivery vehicles behind
Riding
supermarkets,
along
and
in
no
my
trucks waiting
car.
outside warehouses. Your commute might even feel easier. For a few hours, the world would look cleaner, calmer, and more efficient. Then breakfast would begin exposing the problem. The milk in your refrigerator arrived by truck. So did the cereal, coffee, fruit, and probably the refrigerator itself. Even products that crossed oceans on ships or traveled hundreds of miles by rail usually completed part of their journey on a truck. Remove trucks, and the final connection between ports, factories, warehouses, shops, hospitals, building sites, and homes disappears. We tend to notice trucks only when they slow traffic. Economically, however, they are moving storage rooms. They allow businesses to keep less inventory on site because another delivery is expected tomorrow. That expectation makes modern life convenient and keeps costs lower. According to the United States Bureau of Transportation Statistics, trucks move more than half of the tonnage and value measured in major domestic shipment data. The average truck shipment traveled only dozens of miles, which reveals something important. Trucks are not valuable only because they cross entire countries. They dominate the short connections every other transport system needs. So what happens when those connections vanish? During the first morning, stores would continue selling whatever was already on their shelves. Most customers would not panic immediately because nothing visible had changed. Bakery displays would still hold bread. Pharmacies would still have medicine. Construction crews would still have materials. Behind the scenes, thousands of scheduled deliveries would fail to arrive. Supermarket employees would wait beside empty loading bays. Restaurants would receive messages that ingredients were delayed indefinitely. Factories expecting parts would begin counting what remained in storage. Hospitals would check supplies of oxygen, medicine, linens, food, and disposable equipment. The first shortages would not always involve food. Businesses using just-in-time production could stop within hours when a small but essential component ran out. A factory might have steel, workers, and expensive machinery, yet close because it lacked one box of specialized electronic parts. That sounds absurd until you remember that a finished product is only complete when every required piece is present. Before going further, look around the room you are in. Choose one object and imagine every truck journey hidden inside it. Raw materials moved to a factory, components arrived from suppliers. Packaging reached an assembly line. The finished item traveled to a warehouse and then to a shop. One ordinary object can contain several truck trips. What item did you choose, and how many trucks do you think it took to reach you? Let me know in the comments so we can discuss it. By the afternoon, fuel stations would face their own shortage. Gasoline and diesel may travel long distances through pipelines, ships, and rail, but tanker trucks often carry fuel from terminals to local stations. Without those tankers, underground storage would not be replenished. Drivers would see fuel still available and rush to fill their vehicles. That reaction would empty stations faster. The disappearance of trucks would therefore create a second transportation crisis. Cars, buses, emergency vehicles, and machines could still exist, but their fuel distribution would weaken. Electric vehicles would avoid gasoline shortages, yet electricity grid repairs and charging equipment also depend on components transported by truck. By the end of the first day, fresh food would become the most visible signal. Stores usually receive repeated deliveries because milk, meat, produce, and bread cannot sit indefinitely. Shoppers would buy more than usual after hearing that trucks were gone. Shelves would empty from both sides, no products entering and unusually large quantities leaving. I would probably protect my coffee first. That sounds slightly ridiculous during a national emergency, but small routines are where large systems become personal. Millions of people would make similar choices about baby formula, pet food, medicine, or ingredients connected to family traditions. Restaurants might remain open for 1 or 2 days, simplifying menus around what they already had. Prices would rise for dishes using scarce ingredients. Soon, many kitchens would close, not because demand disappeared, but because demand became impossible to serve. The waste system would also begin changing. If all trucks vanished, garbage collection vehicles would be gone too. Bags would accumulate outside homes, restaurants, hospitals, and factories. Food waste would spoil in city streets, while food shortages grew inside nearby buildings. This is one of the uncomfortable contradictions of logistics. A city must continuously bring useful material in and move unwanted material out. Trucks perform both directions. Stop the flow and the city begins filling with the wrong things in the wrong places. Within 2 days, hospitals would receive priority access to whatever alternative vehicles remained. Governments might convert buses, vans, military carriers, and private vehicles into emergency freight transport. Critical medicines could move by helicopter or airplane, but those options are expensive and limited. Other essential services would compete for the same emergency capacity. Water treatment plants require regular deliveries of chemicals. Power stations and repair crews need replacement equipment. Farms need animal feed, seed, fertilizer, and fuel. Fire departments and public works teams depend on specialized vehicles carrying tools that cannot fit inside ordinary cars. A shortage in one of these areas might not become visible until a pump, transformer, or treatment system failed. Then the absence of one component could affect an entire community. This is why officials could not simply announce that food receives every available vehicle. An economy is a web of systems keeping one another alive. Clean water supports hospitals. Electricity keeps refrigerated food safe. Fuel moves emergency workers. Communications help planners direct limited supplies. Choosing what travels first would become a constant moral and economic argument because every urgent delivery would delay another one. A cargo aircraft can move valuable medical supplies quickly between airports. It cannot efficiently restock every clinic, pharmacy, and nursing home. The final miles still require a flexible vehicle able to reach individual buildings. Could trains replace trucks? Rail is excellent for moving heavy quantities over long distances. A single train can carry the equivalent of many trucks with less fuel per unit of freight. But railway lines do not connect directly to most supermarkets, hospitals, restaurants, and homes. Building new tracks would take years, require land, and cost enormous sums. Ships face the same limitation. They can carry extraordinary volumes between ports, but a container sitting at a port is not useful to a customer 40 miles inland. Without trucks, ports would become giant parking lots for goods that had successfully crossed an ocean and failed at the final step. Small vans and cars could help if only large trucks disappeared, but in our scenario, road freight trucks of every size are gone. Even if private cars were used, replacing one large trailer could require dozens of separate journeys. Drivers, fuel, loading time, and traffic would multiply. Roads might initially seem empty. Soon they could become crowded with improvised delivery vehicles carrying tiny loads. Now consider the money. Transport is built into the price of almost everything, but the truck's value is not simply the cost of fuel and a driver. Trucks reduce waiting time. They allow a business to order the right amount, receive it at a predictable hour, and keep production moving. They also make use of information that customers almost never see. Dispatchers combine orders, select routes, match trailers with suitable cargo, track weather, schedule loading docks, and search for a paying shipment on the return journey. A truck carrying food into a city might carry manufactured goods back out instead of returning empty. This coordination spreads fixed costs across more products. When the trucks vanish, the information system built around them loses its purpose too. Replacing the metal vehicle would not be enough. New networks would need to know what was ready, where it belonged, when someone could receive it, and what could travel safely beside it. Frozen food, live animals, fuel, medicine, and fragile electronics cannot simply be mixed together. Logistics is a continuous puzzle solved before most people have finished breakfast, and trucks are the pieces flexible enough to fit its changing shape. Without trucks, companies would hold more inventory near every location. More inventory requires warehouses, capital, refrigeration, security, and insurance. Products would become more expensive even after alternative transport systems improved. Workers would feel the shock quickly. Truck drivers would lose their jobs because the vehicles themselves had vanished. Warehouse teams would have less freight to process. Factory employees would be sent home when inputs ran out. Retail workers would face closed stores. Construction crews would wait for cement, lumber, tools, and replacement parts. At the same time, demand for couriers, rail workers, cargo pilots, bicycle delivery riders, mechanics, warehouse planners, and local producers would surge. Economies do not respond to a missing system with silence. They begin paying people to build substitutes. During the first week, governments would ration transportation capacity. Food, medicine, water treatment chemicals, fuel, and power grid equipment would come before furniture, fashion, and consumer electronics. People might be allowed to collect standardized boxes from rail stations, ports, schools, or temporary depots. Choice would shrink. Instead of ordering one specific brand to your door, you would accept whatever could be moved efficiently in bulk. Large cities near ports and railway hubs might adapt faster. Remote towns would face greater isolation because trucks provide flexible service to places that cannot support airports or rail terminals. Rural communities producing food could still struggle to receive medicine, machine parts, and household goods. Farmers would face a painful mismatch. Crops might be ready, but vehicles would not arrive to collect them. Milk production cannot simply pause while new logistics are designed. Animals still need care and food. Perishable products would be dumped or left to spoil as consumers paid rapidly rising prices elsewhere. The pandemic offered a smaller preview of this mismatch. Supply chains experienced empty shelves, delayed components, crowded ports, and products stranded in unsuitable locations. Trucks did not disappear, but even partial interruptions showed how quickly efficiency can become fragility when every link expects the others to operate on time. Entrepreneurs would begin redesigning cities around shorter distances. Warehouses would open closer to neighborhoods. Local factories could receive new investment. Cargo bicycles and small electric carriers might dominate dense urban areas if they were not included in the disappearance. Old railway sidings could return to service. Some businesses would combine production and retail. Bakeries might buy grain locally, mill it nearby, and sell directly. Farms near cities could become more valuable. Repair businesses would grow because replacing broken products would be difficult. There would be environmental gains and losses. Fewer diesel trucks would reduce direct road emissions and noise. Rail and water transport could take larger shares of long-distance freight. Yet inefficient replacement trips by smaller vehicles and aircraft might consume more energy. Building new warehouses and rail connections would also require materials. The result would depend on whether society redesigned the system or merely tried to imitate trucks badly. By the end of the first month, companies with access to rail, ports, or local suppliers would gain an enormous advantage. Real estate beside freight terminals would become extremely valuable. Large firms could build private transport networks, while small businesses might struggle to meet minimum shipment sizes. Consumers would plan farther ahead. Same-day delivery would feel almost unbelievable. A missing ingredient could delay a meal for days. A broken washing machine might remain broken for months, while a replacement part waited at a distant terminal. This slower world could encourage patience and repair. It would also reduce productivity, time spent searching for goods. Traveling to collection points and waiting for supplies is time not spent working, resting, learning, or caring for family. Over several months, engineers would create truck substitutes, modular rail systems, autonomous cargo pods, expanded pipelines, cargo trams, drones, and neighborhood distribution hubs would attract investment. Standard containers would be redesigned for easier movement between systems. Eventually, one solution would become especially attractive: a flexible road vehicle able to carry large quantities directly from one location to another without fixed tracks. It might be electric. It might drive itself. It might use replaceable cargo modules and operate only at night. But economically, it would perform the same function as a truck. We would reinvent the truck. That is the deeper lesson. Ships make global trade possible. Railways move heavy freight efficiently, and aircraft provide speed. Trucks provide connection. They fill the gaps between fixed networks and millions of individual destinations. Return to that unusually quiet morning commute. The highway looked peaceful because the vehicles you considered an obstacle had disappeared. By evening, the quiet would feel different. It would mean no milk delivery, no hospital shipment, no factory parts, no fuel tanker, and no garbage collection. The truck was never just traffic. It was the moving link that allowed the rest of the economy to reach your front door.